Coming up, a Sad Styles production. Get into it!
All right, you want to talk about Mr. Mosquito?
Do I want to talk about Mr. Mosquito?
Yeah, do you want to talk about Mr. Mosquito?
Andrew, I've been waiting since 2002 to talk about Mr. Mosquito. And every time I bring it up, you're like, I don't know that game. I don't want to talk about that
Yeah,
game.
that's exactly what I say.
So thankfully, I've been buzzing around you like an annoying little bastard, asking you to, and you're like, fine, we'll do it. I used the excuse. I told you it was the 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's not?
I'm kidding, it is.
Oh, okay. It's spring. This is the time for Mr. Mosquito.
That's very true.
Welcome to the Retrograde
podcast where we remind you what you used to love and whether or not you still should.
My name is Andrew Bascom, and with me as always is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself.
Mr. Mosquito, Aaron Word.
Just laid it up for you,
It's real easy because it sounds like Mister Mosquito, which is the name of the game that we're doing today. I like saying the name of the game, it turns out.
Name of the game.
Name of the game.
It's the name of the game.
It's overrated. Underrated, I think, is something to say.
Okay.
Something to say. People say it's played out. I don't think so.
No, I think it's properly rated.
I think we should say it at the beginning of every episode.
Name of the game.
Name of the game.
Okay, name of the game again is...
Mr. Mosquito.
Mr. Mosquito.
A game that I've been desperately trying to get us to do on this podcast for a long time. There was a time in the early 2000s when North American development companies or publishing companies were taking risks on pre-existing Japanese properties and bringing them stateside, or to North America, localizing them, as it were. Weird ass, quirky games that otherwise never would have gotten any play or any sort of recognition here. And this is one of those games. There were a few of them around this era. You know, maybe even dating back to as early as Parappa the Rappa. I'm not sure where that had its origins, but games that kind of bucked the trend a little bit compared to some of the other more traditional games that we would have gotten to. And eventually on this podcast, this episode, I'd love to get into some of your favorite weirdest games of all time.
Oh my God.
Which we'll do, and we'll start talking about Mr. Mosquito in a little bit. But before we do, Andrew, why don't you bring us up to speed on some of your gaming habits? I know you've been busy.
Yeah.
It was your birthday this past week.
It was my birthday, yes. Thank you very much.
Did you ask your parents for a little gift?
Yeah, and they didn't give me one of those sons of bitches.
Give you one. I saw they baked a Smirnoff Ice in a cake for you. That's hilarious.
Yes. I think somebody had been watching TikTok and realized that you could put a Smirnoff Ice in a cake. And and they iced it and everything, and I cut into it, and I'm like, well, that's a lot. This cake's very solid. And I pulled out a Smirnoff Ice. It was great.
Your parents, by the way, were wearing cut-off jean shorts. They had backwards Oakleys and spiked Guy Fieri hair.
Yeah.
They're just like reliving the early 2000s Smirnoff Ice.
Yeah. And then they, when I was finished chugging it, they smacked me in the nuts. And I'm like, oh, man. And they're like, you're such a beta cuck or what, my parents.
That's more
like
modern,
that.
I think. But they did still say it.
They did.
Yeah.
I can't control what they said, Mikey.
No, of course.
There was it was a good birthday, and thank you to everyone being so nice on Twitter about that. That was very nice.
Yeah.
You know what? I've been playing games.
And that's good because we got a podcast about them.
We do. We have a podcast about games, and I've been playing them. MLB The Show obviously is dominating my life. I like to also, because the MLB season has started, and I play as the Toronto Blue Jays, our hometown team, and our team is very good this year, or should be, and so it's exciting.
Dropped the ball a little bit recently, earlier in the week.
What are you good? You're gonna lose a game or what's wild?
I don't know if you're good enough.
Yeah, you should go 162-0.
You should.
If you're good.
What's your excuse?
You lose? You're a bunch of losers. So I like to get out ahead of the schedule of the actual team so that I can keep up with the team and stuff like that. But I need to give myself a little bit of a cushion for pushing. And so so I've been playing MLB The Show. I've been playing some of the new Fortnite season just to keep up with it. It's been very interesting. You can play as Doctor Strange this season, which is very fun. Which is one of those ones where I used to get excited by it with the full understanding that there was always a movie or something associated with the new characters.
Someone's paying a lot of money to have.
I can play as the Mandalorian, and my backpack is little
really
Grogu.
Cool, that is very cool.
And the ship my umbrella is the ship, the Razor Crest.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, those things like that. And I'm like, wait, the Mandalorian's coming out in 3 weeks. And I'm like, crafty bastards. So I doing a little bit of that. That's been fun. I don't know. There's so many games on the go right now. It's crazy. I've been playing WWE like we talked about a couple weeks ago.
That's good. Because first when you started playing WWE, you were not quite as excited about it. It kind of felt like it was still dragging its feet a little bit.
Yeah.
Have you come around a little bit on it?
It's not as bad as it was 2 years ago. That was an utter disaster.
Yeah.
But, it's good. It's very capable. And if you really love the WWE games, this is perfect for you.
Nice.
It's functional. It's good. whatever. But I don't know. It doesn't seem to attract my attention. And I get that like sports games have evolved in the last couple of years for these, like, whether you like them or not, or the My Teams, the Ultimate Teams, or whatever they call them now. And now every iteration of sports games feel like they have to do some kind of like daily card and create your own roster and stuff like that.
Did they have like a card mechanic?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And I don't like it.
I don't blame them because you're leaving money off the table if you don't do it, but I just do not like that. You know what I hate most about it? And it's kind of what I grew tired of in regular sports games as well, is the Be a Pro resetting and the ultimate card, the card sets resetting with each iteration. Yeah. Why would I want to buy the new iteration when my Be a Pro, who I worked so hard to raise up, now has to start as like a 65 average? No, thank you.
No.
What is this? My high school career?
Is this true, or is this something I made up in my head? Follow me.
Okay.
Is it like year to year, sometimes you could import your last franchise or roster into it like 20 years ago?
I'm sure they've tried that before.
Okay.
But I don't think they've done that since, with at least not with the NHL franchise. I've never been able to find it. If I could, I would have done that in a heartbeat. Because my least favorite thing is the barrier to entry of like being in the NHL as a 65 average power forward who can barely check. I'm like, this fucking sucks.
Yeah. Can someone tell me, like, on Twitter, at Retrograde Andy, at Retrograde Mikey?
Hey.
The podcast is at Retrograde Pod. But is that like, let me know, was there a game like that, or am I making it up completely? I don't know. I just wanted it, so maybe I made it up in my head.
It felt like the kind of thing that was just like too convenient for the players without having to like reinvest time and money into the franchise, so they took away the opportunity to do it.
Now I'm like exploring this whole thought of like, was there certain games that said that were aware that you had played the last year's iteration?
Oh, that definitely.
Yeah.
But not necessarily with sports games.
Right.
There were, I mean, think about something like Mass Effect or The Witcher or The Walking Dead. Any of these games that add on to some of the story beats that you've hit on. It's like, okay, you've got a save file. We're going to pull from that and give you... I've said this on the podcast before. I've never had luck with that. I played all the Walking Dead games, and every single time I imported my save from the last one, it gave me incorrect. They gave me choices I didn't make, so I never felt like the story was my story.
And you know what was ironic about that? Mikey didn't remember that. Like, I thought Mikey
remember making this.
I thought I would have remembered this.
That is one of the greatest memes to come out of a video game. I love it. I love that. I haven't picked up MLB The Show. I might try it on Game Pass at some point because we had some fun with MVP Baseball.
But enough. You got to tell me, Mikey.
Yes.
How are you doing with
Elden Ring?
Yeah, your favorite game of all time.
You know what? Okay, I very love-hate relationship with this game. But I am
set you up.
I'm finally just accepting the fact that I need to accept help in the game sometimes through spirit summons or like spirit ashes or summoning co-op partners or something like that. But I still think the thing I hate most about this, or not hate, but the thing that bothers me the most about Elden Ring compared to other FromSoft games is typically in FromSoft games, the world is small enough that any enemy I come across with enough time, regardless of my level, I can beat. In this, without really changing too much about the way that I play the game and summons and magic and ranged attacks and all this stuff. In this one, it feels...
You sound insane, but yes.
Yeah. Well, to you maybe.
Yes, to the layman novice.
I think you sound insane for not playing the game. Personally.
Yeah. So you can summon a co-op player. So like just a guy on the game.
Yep.
He's like, oh, this guy needs help. I'm going to pop over.
You can do that.
That's
there are
fun.
consumables that you have to use to do it. It's kind of like a tax that doesn't even need to be there because it's pretty easy to craft those items. But more than ever, I'm finding myself in situations in the game that I got to organically that are just fucking possible. Impossible. I spent over the weekend an hour and a half on one boss, trying to beat one boss that I think is maybe my least favorite boss I've ever come across in a Souls game. It's the Abductor Virgins at the base of the Volcano Manor.
Abductor Virgins.
Abductor Virgins.
Okay, just want to make sure I got it right.
Oh, you got it. Okay, got it.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Doesn't make sense.
Good job by me.
And they nailed me several times in the buttocks.
Not virgins anymore, eh?
Not virgins anymore. No, not even close.
Okay.
I hated it. I spent an hour and a half running. I couldn't summon anyone because no one was... You have to have people in the area willing to help you. Otherwise, you just can't summon anyone.
Yeah. There was a mechanic like that in Division. The Division? The District? No, the
Division.
The Division, where you could call a signal, like a flare in the air.
Yes.
And call someone. And it was my favorite part of that game, where it's like, someone needs help, and you just show up and like wreck shit and go
That's great.
Just give them a little tip hat and then run away to never be seen again.
I love that.
It's so much fun.
It does feel really good. And sometimes when I finally one thing that FromSoft games always do very well, you bump up against a boss, and then finally the time that you beat them, you've basically mastered them, and you could probably beat them over and over and over again at that point. You just kind of like the tentative fear of that boss and the unknowing of their mechanics and stuff. So I like to go back and help people with the bosses as well. There's a benefit to you as the player as well. But so an hour and a half, I bumped up against this game. I was getting so frustrated. I was getting so stuck. Not just this game, this one boss run. The next morning, I turn it on. First try, I nail it. And it's just, it's this thing you constantly have to remind yourself of in these games. And it was one of those moments where I realized, I'm like, okay, maybe I am being too stubborn in this game. Right. Sometimes you do need to walk away, separate yourself. You get stuck in these little ruts of bad habits, and you go back to it and you beat it easily. And I'm like, why was I struggling so hard with that? And
why were you?
It's a great question.
Okay.
Because I was stubborn and frustrated and trying to like rush instead of being like, okay, I haven't just spent an hour and a half playing this. This is my first attempt. If I lose, I'm just going to put the game down. I just want to see how hard this actually is. And I win, and I'm like, oh, okay.
That's
not
funny.
so bad.
It's funny how it works in games like that sometimes, where either there's that where you're like, I just need a fresh start at this.
Yes.
You need fresh eyes. You just kind of do your own thing. And then, it's almost like at night, your brain was working while you were sleeping to figure out how to do it.
Honestly, that's what it feels like.
Or there's the opposite, where your first try, you get really close, and then you try 40 more times and you can't do it. And you're like, oh my God, it was the closest on my first try.
That's what, with a lot of bosses in this game, I get very close on my first try and then shit the bed constantly after that. But it's funny you say the falling asleep thing, because this happens to me so often in this game. There was one move I kept getting hit by, and I envisioned while I was in bed a method that might help me avoid it, and I applied that tactic, and it actually worked. Like,
so when you're in bed, you're envisioning a method.
Yes.
About video games.
About video games. Okay. When I was in bed with my partner, yes.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah.
Did you roll over and be like, hey, wake up.
I need to try something on you real quick. Try to attack me.
And then they do like a very curious, like, oh, and you're like, no, not like that.
No, I am soft as a baby's bottom right now. The other game that I tried.
Soft as a baby's bottom. Sorry, I overtook that one. That was very good.
Another game I mentioned that I've been trying, Tunic. I didn't have to buy it. It's on Game Pass, so I've just been booting it up. This game, just a very weird choice. They start you off with a weapon in this game that is absolutely atrocious.
Oh.
And I didn't think that I would be getting a progression to that weapon quickly, or if I did, that it would make a huge difference. So it's about an hour and a half into the game that you get an upgrade, and once you do, the game becomes way better, so much better. So if you're out there playing Tunic, I'm saying this to you, the listener, stick with it until you get the sword. Once you get the sword, the game is way more fun. You have a stick before then.
A stick?
A stick.
I was like, what's before sword?
Yeah. Stick.
Oh, wow, okay.
But that game is music, graphics, level design, all that stuff. It is less hand-holdy than even Elden Ring.
Oh, wow.
You feel lost all the time, but just trust that wherever you are. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. But you know what? Do you have that feeling with some games, like the feeling of like just not quite having figured it out, like stumbling around and like poking at different areas of the level and seeing what gives? Do you like that feeling? Like that feeling of being lost, which I think is intentionally designed in some games?
You know what? I think it's when the game is designed like that and the whole game is like that, I am all in on it. I'm like, that's cool. But if it's the ones where you're like, you were helping me the whole fucking time and now I can't figure out what to do, that feels very frustrating.
Yeah.
So like consistency.
Not quite. This one, this is so intentionally supposed to make you feel lost that like you're unlockable in the game, your collectible is pieces of the instruction manual so that you can figure out how to play the game.
Oh my God.
And all the words in the instruction manual are in a gibberish language. So you just have to like intuit based on symbols what it's actually meaning. It is that's like the design is it takes a big fucking swing, but it I think works really well.
Wow, that's like Facebook because it's so meta.
Oh, Andrew.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were gonna make another dumb pun, but that one didn't. Zuckerberg. So if Tunic has a sequel, it's called Tunic.
And if the first game was called
Nick.
Eunuch.
Eunuch. Yeah, there you go.
I knew it. We got it there together, guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's fun. So you're playing Tunic, you're playing...
I'm playing Tunic, I'm playing Elden Ring.
Yeah.
I want to play Kirby. I want to play Star Wars, the Skywalker, the Lego game.
I am going to get that game.
Are you going to get that game?
I'm going to get that game.
I saw a couple of our listeners were asking what our opinions were, and you chimed in, you said, I'm going to bite the bullet and get it.
I'm going to do it.
I did not expect this game to be up your alley.
So I really don't have any history with the Lego games and the 300 iterations that they've made.
Right.
But it's a fun way to revisit Star Wars, which I sometimes have this is something that I get doxed for.
You get shit on.
I get shit on the glass table for is that I have mixed feelings about Star Wars sometimes. I resent the certain ways that they sell us the original trilogy now.
Sure.
But I want to go back and kind of play those games and relive it and see if it can kind of have that magic.
Yes.
Where you're like, and the music hits and oh my God.
Honestly, have you ever played any of the Lego games?
I've played one of the Avengers games.
Oh, cool.
And it was interesting.
So you've played all the Lego games.
I've played all 500 Lego games.
Basically, if you've played one, you played them all. And I don't mean that as
see.
an insult. There is a collectathon, like almost Zen state that you get into when
Flow
you're playing
state.
these games. Yeah, flow state, really. Yeah, without the need to really work hard at all.
He played that game with his eyes closed.
You kind of can.
Yeah, floating.
And I talk about I'm like Jack McKinney.
Yeah, Jack McKinney.
Plays. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Very good. Nice ref. Winning time. HBO.
Well, you said magic. You're like, oh, you're looking for the magic. I'm like,
I actually thought I was going to make a Jack McKinney one, and I'm like, I'll hold back just in case. If you guys want to hear us talk TV, we have a TV episode coming up on Patreon.
Patreon.com/Retrograde podcast.
Thank you very much. That we're going to be talking about that because we're here talking about games. We're
Winning
game boys.
Time, Severance, maybe a couple others.
Oh, there's a lot.
Just a lot to catch up
Better
on.
Call Saul's coming back. Barry's coming back. There's a lot of TV.
There's a lot. But we want to talk just strict video games in this podcast. Now, we were talking about Lego Star Wars.
Yes.
You know how I love in like the Ratchet and Clank games, how you have the gears that you bust something open and the gears kind of like come into you and the sound effects and now the feeling on the DualSense controller. You get that with like the little Lego bits. A lot of things just floating into you and seeing numbers going up. You're going to love that part of the game as long as you're not expecting much of a challenge. And I feel like the world needs right now games like Kirby and the Forgotten Land and games like Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga.
I so badly want to play Kirby though.
So do I. I will play it over the summer, I think.
Okay, there you go. Because it's fun. I've heard it's easy.
Yes.
And to be perfectly honest, I don't care.
Yes.
Not every game needs to be, Elden
Ring.
Elden Ring, sorry.
Or Tunic even. Tunic is fucking really hard.
Well, that's like every game doesn't have to be excruciatingly difficult.
Yes.
You're allowed to enjoy things. That's why there's different genres of movies. Not every movie's, Sophie's Choice, her favorite movie. Some movies.
Some of them are Doubt.
Some of them
Our
are
second
Doubt.
favorite
Or
movie.
Schindler's List, yes.
Our third favorite movie.
Yes. Do you want to watch Sophie's Choice tonight? Oh, you're not in for that mood? Okay, how about Schindler's List?
I'm in for a lighter movie. Do you have the Amistad? You have the Amistad laying around somewhere?
I don't, but I have 12 Years a Slave. Is that something you'd be interested in?
Yeah, you know what? Can we watch just the middle bits of that? I really feel like something uplifting.
Yeah, something like cut out the Brad Pitt part and I'm all in.
Honestly, the Brad Pitt part is the saddest part of that movie.
Yes.
The fact that he felt he needed to come in and be
An angel.
The Sandra Bullock of this movie.
A legitimate angel. The light comes over top of him. And you're like, are you serious?
I'm not serious. I'm Canadian.
Story. I'm Canadian. Winks to the camera. What's going on?
No, but the reason I say the world needs games like Lego and Kirby right now is because we're all entrenched in Elden Ring right now. And I would love a little bit of a palate cleanse. We also need some quirk. Let's get some quirk back in video games. Like in the early 2000s, you had some of these weird-ass games coming out. Mister Mosquito is the one that we're going to be focusing on today. But before we do that, Andrew, what are some of the weirdest games that you've come across in your 3 years as a gamer?
Yeah, it's been 3 years now. My anniversary's coming up. It's going to be exciting. Somebody's going to show me what a Game Boy is, and I'll be like, what the hell is that?
Is that like the sequel to the Virtual Boy?
What do I do with it? And I turn it upside down like an ape with the obelisk. Yeah, you know what? I think my mind immediately went to some of the games we played on this podcast.
Oh, sure.
But Boogerman is
one of them.
Definitely high up there. Earthworm Jim is definitely high up there. Earthworm Jim, I think, even more so because it's really leaning into like nothing is normal. Everything is weird.
And by the way, Earthworm Jim 2, we're likely going to be doing at the end of May.
Cool.
We're going to be having a guest on. Earthworm Jim 2 is now available on Nintendo Switch Online, so you can play along with us.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah.
And I actually really liked Earthworm Jim, so I'm excited to go back and play that. Yeah, those ones, some of the ones where they take really big leaps in, like I obviously love sports games, so like when they start doing Mutant League,
Hell yeah.
or Bill Lambier, where like they're asking you to be violent in a game that doesn't necessarily like accept violence.
Right.
You know, just because Bill Hambier's a dickhead, everyone's got to be like this.
Combat baseball or combat basketball.
Combat
right?
basketball, just beating the shit out of people. Those are the ones where take something, you know, you could either do a genre like it takes something normal and twists it slightly, or it's going everything's weird, nothing is normal.
I like those everything is weird, nothing is normal games, and I think that Japan gets a lot more of them than we do.
That's a good point.
And I feel like there was a time when games maybe were at that sweet spot where they didn't cost quite as much to make. You can get some budget titles. Like there was a game that came out, I think for the PlayStation or PlayStation 2. It was like a budget racing game, like the Italian Job or something like that. And it was like a $20 budget game that everyone loved. Those games are almost, I guess they come in the form of indie games right now.
Yeah.
But you got games like one game that I remember that I played as a kid on the original PlayStation was called Incredible Crisis. And it was sort of a rhythm game where you were trying not to lose your mind, like get super frustrated. You as the protagonist were trying to engage in like regular social aspects of your life. In order to do so, you had to like maintain rhythm in a game, like Parappa the Rappa a little bit. And if you failed, you would lose your mind and explode. And like you'd be on like a date on a Ferris wheel or something like that. You'd fuck it up. You'd be at like an office party trying to talk to people and you'd fuck it up. It's like a social anxiety simulator.
That's amazing.
A great game. That was 2000. Seaman, another one.
Oh, how did I not think of
Weird
Seaman?
ass fucking game. I'm happy.
How
as
did
hell.
I not think of Seaman?
Have you thought about Seaman lately? Just always hearing the bubbles in the background.
Yes.
Yeah.
Seaman, are you aware of human atrocities? I am aware.
I am a human atrocity.
Why did you do this to me? Leonard Nimoy.
You've got Elite Beat Agents in 2006, another rhythm game on the Nintendo DS, where you're basically you control, I think, 3 male dancers in suits, like dressed like Agent Smith, who show up to dance people into a better mood or solve their problems via dance. Was a great ass one.
That's amazing.
That a game, and it would have songs like it had Let's Dance by David Bowie,
Oh,
in it,
wow.
Material Girl by
Madonna.
Madonna.
Wow.
A weird ass game that I played to the dismay of everyone on the airplane around me without headphones.
Oh, no.
On an airplane when I was a kid.
How old are you? 22?
Oh, yeah, definitely at least that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was last week.
I was 22 in 2006, yeah. Typing of the Dead.
Yeah, Typing the Dead's a
Typing the
really
Dead,
good
another
one.
one
Typing the Dead is like, it makes sense, but it's still weird.
It's so weird.
It's so weird, but it's like,
let's do it. Let's make some conceits. I don't always need to attach rationale to mechanics. They try to build that into Typing of the Dead. They try to make it so that like the protagonists have like keyboards as though they're actually typing at.
Right.
I'm like, I don't even need that. Give them guns. It's fine. We're fine.
Well, 100%. But it's like trying to feed your dog a pill and wrapping in cheese. Like, you know, like
Yes,
I get like,
exactly.
I get
exactly.
why.
I wrap everything in cheese.
Oh, I do actually. Yeah, that's how I brush my teeth. Queso.
Nobi Boy, another 2009 game published by Bandai Namco, which is the same publisher as FromSoft games. So maybe it's in that
canonically a predecessor.
It's a predecessor to Dark Souls.
Yeah.
The one that I have to mention, I think more than anyone, because I think this was the biggest success story of any of these games, and I don't think it came stateside with the anticipation that it was going to take the world by storm, but eventually it did. It's Katamari Damacy.
Oh yeah,
a game that you've played, Katamari, right?
Yeah, I played Katamari.
I remember that game was so obscure when it first came out that I learned about it in EGM. And I figured out the release date through like message boards and stuff because it wasn't listed on any websites or anything like that. And I went to an electronics boutique at the time, Canadian version of GameStop.
Yep.
And I asked them, I was like, do you have the game Katamari Damacy? It should have come in today. And the guy's like, no, like what are you talking
You're
about?
tracking the package for them.
Yes, exactly. I was like, I know it arrived at 12:33.
Okay, settle down, C-Man.
He said C word, not C man.
Right. You're censoring yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, no, I've never heard of that game. Are you sure that's a game and not a movie? Like he literally had no concept of this game. And I said, where did the shipments come in today? And he's like, they're in the back. I'm like, can you show me the box? Have you unpacked it yet? And he's like, no. I'm like, show me the box.
Oh my God.
And I went through it and found the game. And I like pushed it. I didn't actually, but I wanted to like push it against his face and be like, this is the fucking game I was telling you about.
You're young Sheldoning him.
Exactly.
This poor guy making $11 an hour is getting bullied by a child.
Hey, here's the thing about people who used to work at EB Games. They bullied everyone who were, they thought they were so much better than everyone who came in there saying they knew something about video games.
It's like the high fidelity for video games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Where you're like, oh, fuck you. I'm just here to buy Bowie. And like, oh, Bowie's not even the best. Oh, shut up.
Shut up, John Cusack.
Yeah.
So I got that game, Katamari Damacy, and I think that was one of the ones that really proved to even like North American developers that like you can make these games here.
Yep.
With the promise that they're going to go out. Like we have the same sort of need for silliness and camp and sort of off the wall bonkers video games as any other industry or any other nation in the world. So Katamari kind of broke those doors open. But before Katamari in 2002, this is 2 years prior to Katamari, we got this game, Mister Mosquito.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I had a conversation very similar with this, but it was about movies, and it's the same idea. Whereas the games like this just don't exist really anymore. Yeah. The middle thing doesn't exist.
Right.
You get the cheap version, and I mean that budget wise, not like quality wise, and they're released as indie games, or you have the 3-star AAA titles that cost hundreds of millions of dollars now to be made, and that's great. And I love those AAA titles. Don't get me wrong, but it's the same thing about movies. Everything now is either a Marvel movie or a tentpole movie. Or it's James Bond or it's Fast and Furious or whatever it is. Or it's a movie under $5 million. Right. And there's nothing in the middle. And so what's really tough is that, like, Michael Bay made Ambulance that came out.
Was that Michael Bay?
Yeah.
Okay.
And whatever, it's probably garbage, but it made under $10 million. And now my fear is that, and we had this discussion about Old when M. Night Shyamalan made Old.
Right.
It's like, as much as those movies aren't really my favorites and I don't really care for them, it is important that they still get made because we need variance instead of like Spider-Man. There's 12 cinemas, there's 12 screenings in the cinema and all 12 are Spider-Man. Yes. That's not good. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing with this where you don't want it to be just like, Grand Theft Auto 12. Having weird games and having a space for them and having a budget for them is really important.
I agree. And I think, as much as we worry about what something like Game Pass is doing to the world of finances and video games and budgets and all that stuff, maybe that gives people a little bit, like, you don't need the distribution money anymore. You can just kind of put it on the platform. And I know that companies like GameStop were very much a roadblock for a lot of the digital distribution because they're like, if you distribute your games for like any less than what they sell at retail, we're not going to carry your physical consoles. Now, as has kind of happened with the entire world, everyone is realizing you don't need brick and mortar stores. No. I think that they can serve a great purpose, but like Microsoft and Sony sold their console without GameStop. Yeah. Like, why do they need them anymore? Yeah. And it's maybe similar with Cineplex. I know there are a lot of complications there because then it gives a lot of power to things like Amazon. And it does,
which is also another issue. Or you have whatever the video games version of Martin Scorsese going saying he pretty much predicted what was going to happen, except everyone read it as like, I don't like superhero movies. Fuck you, old man. And he's like, no, just every screening is going to be this. And now you're like, oh, it happened.
Oh, he's right.
Oh, man.
Old man yells at clouds. Clouds turn out to be toxic gas.
Clouds yell back.
I yelled at the abyss. The abyss did nothing. Exactly. I yelled at clouds. Clouds stared back at me. But I hope that this kind of middle ground exists. I just talked about Tunic for a while. Yes. That feels like probably something similar. You get something like Hyper Light Drifter, one of my favorite games of the last 5-6 years. Similar kind of thing. But Mister Mosquito feels like something of a bygone era.
Absolutely.
It does feel like something that doesn't get made unless it's put out there as like a $5 indie game. And I'm sure they do exist out there. Sure. But as something that got like relative mainstay releases, like IDOS published this game in the United States under a company called, they were doing it for a little while, called their Fresh Games label, where they would kind of do this on purpose. They would seek out these kind of quirky games and bring it. So this game, and fucking bring it.
And they brought it.
And they brought it good. The Mister Mosquito, it was spelt Mister as in MR, Moskeeto in the PAL regions, which is weird as hell. Just plain old Mister Mosquito in North America, because we're not weird. And then in Japan, it was Ka, which is just the name for mosquito. Okay. Makes sense.
So why the Mister thing? Is he wearing a fancy bow tie?
No, but he has like orange. He's got an orange body.
He's got an orange body,
which doesn't really explain why it's Mister.
No,
but he's got one.
Yeah, like I don't know why. Like he is deserving of my respect. Like, oh, it's Mister Mosquito to you. Like, kind of like, okay.
Well, it's not Sir Mosquito. Mister feels like the most basic formality.
Yeah, but I don't even know why we need this formality.
That's true.
Right, that's all I'm saying.
When was the last time someone sucked your blood? Apart from Dr. Michael Morbius, and then you could be Dr. Mosquito.
Absolutely. He needs to take a blood sample, and he just brings out those fangs, Dr. Michael Morbius style.
Exactly, those fangs. It brings out those fans as well.
I am never going to stop talking about Dr. Michael Morbius.
Can we never? Can we please never?
Can we never?
Can this podcast be sponsored by Dr. Michael Morbius? Not even the movie Morbius?
I hope they make 9 of them. I really hope that they just keep getting worse and worse. Oh, Jesse would make me so happy.
If they make 9 of them, Jared Leto will actually like surgically implant dragon's teeth, vampire
couple dragon's teeth
into his body.
Yeah, he will.
Why is it Mister?
I don't know.
It's a mystery to me. I don't know. I can't answer that question. But I find it bizarre to gender this mosquito because male mosquitoes don't suck blood.
Is that true?
Yeah, only female mosquitoes suck blood.
Son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch.
I'm learning so much here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Male mosquitoes are those giant, like lanky ass leg mosquito. They're all legs. They're like those huge ass ones you see.
Like you?
They're very much like me. All legs and arms, and I can't suck your blood.
I'm disgusted by it.
I'm just
yeah.
I just float around your room asking you to kill me. That's end this. End
Please,
this.
God. I don't even get to do anything fun like suck blood. Have you seen Morbius? Oh my God, this guy won't leave me alone.
Dr. Michael Morbius. So it was developed by Zoom Inc., not that Zoom.
Okay.
But
big pivot for them, eh?
Really big pivot. Yeah. Released in Japan in June 2001, North America in March 2002. It's the 20-year anniversary, as we mentioned earlier, as of March of 2022. The intention of Fresh Games was to bring these quirky games stateside, and in this case, I think it worked. It got a fair amount of attention because of how weird it was and because this was very seldom happening.
Yeah.
But it still didn't sell crazy, and its reviews were kind of middle of the line. But before we get to the reviews, do you want me to explain some of the story here?
Oh, there's a story? Yes, please.
Of course there's a story, Andrew. It's Mister Mosquito.
Well, I don't know what that means, but yes, that sounds good. I don't know why that...
Here's the thing, Andrew.
Okay.
Every mosquito you've ever come across and likely killed has a story of its own.
Yeah, I guess so.
And in this case, you are basically an absolute terrorist. You are an absolute terrorist. You're terrorizing a family called the Yamada family.
The Yamada family,
which is your food source in this game.
100%.
And the whole premise, which I find also like everyone involved in this game failed biology. Everybody. Because the premise is that you want to store up enough blood to be able to last through the winter as the mosquitoes hibernate. Mosquitoes live like 2 days.
Yeah, they die so fast.
2 days. But anyway, you're trying to...
Is there like a vial I squirt it back out at?
There actually is.
Oh,
you store
no.
up vials. So maybe this is Mr. Mosquito because he's a pretty efficient mosquito.
Man, you know what? I'm starting to worry that this is a prequel to Dr. Michael Morbius.
You're starting to worry or starting to get excited?
Both.
Both? A little bit of both?
I'm scared, but horny.
I am no longer as soft as a baby's bottom.
Yes, exactly. I'm as large as a broadsword right now.
So you need to get the blood to last you through the winter. You have to basically like find the family at different parts of their house and interact with them by sucking their blood without cluing them into the fact that you're there.
Sure.
It's kind of like Shadow of the Colossus in a weird way because you are a tiny little thing. There are no minor enemies. There are just the bosses and that's it. And you have to find ways sometimes to like get them out off their bed. So you'll like turn on a stereo and they'll be like, how did that turn on?
Yeah.
And they'll like turn it off.
Sounds like Untitled Goose Game.
It is in a weird way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that this game is kind of forgotten in a large part. And I don't know that this was influential to like most Japanese developers because maybe there were a lot of other games like it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But at least in terms of my perspective of like what came first,
right?
This definitely is owed some credit by Untitled Goose Game.
Yeah. I think the goose also has is just never satisfied with enough blood.
No, it's got to eat as much blood as possible.
That goose needs so much blood, it's crazy.
Too much blood.
Yeah.
And some of the pranks in that game, it's almost like I couldn't finish it because it would turn my stomach a little bit. It was like press A to honk, like honk, honk.
Press A to honk, press B to devour a child. And then goes back to honking. Like, look at that adorable goose, just covered in blood, like the white, feathers.
There was one level in Untitled Goose Game where you really had to bully a child. Really bully a child.
Bully child.
Basically.
Yeah.
And it felt awkward. I did not enjoy doing it, but
I did it.
But I did it anyway, and I beat the game, and I felt great doing it. So while you're trying to suck the blood, you're trying not to let them know that you're kind of in the room.
Right.
You have different pressure points that or areas from which you have to suck the blood. You have to suck it in rhythm.
Okay. All right. I see what we're doing here.
Nope. This is not. I'm not intending to go down that path. Although I'm sure we will at some point.
I'm sure we will.
Because if you suck it in rhythm, outside of rhythm, you'll like wake them up. They'll be like, sometimes like a mosquito will bite you and you won't even know it bit you until it's too late.
What the hell was that? Yeah.
If it's biting you or if you're biting a human and they notice you there and they slap you, you die instantly. But if they notice you in the air, you enter a battle mode where they're like swinging at you. It's a real Godzilla situation.
Yeah.
Nicole Kidman's there. Wait, no.
Wait, I think you mean King Kong.
King Kong. What did I say?
Godzilla, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And
you're Mothra.
You're Mothra.
You're a very tiny Mothra.
Yeah.
But the way you win a battle is by biting them on pressure points to the point where they say, I'm going back to sleep. You bite them so much that they're like, not worth it.
Unconscious?
Not even. They're like give up. They're like, I'm going back to bed.
The mosquito wins.
The mosquito wins. I have no control over this situation at this point. So it's a weird, bizarre thing. But as weird as that process is, you can imagine the premise is actually kind of great. It's a flying game. You're trying to trick larger things than yourself to hit pressure points,
right?
Not clue them into the fact that you're there. And the set pieces, you can find them getting very imaginative with it. Overall, the gameplay wasn't received amazing.
Okay.
But it has an average of 68%.
Oh boy.
That's not that bad. There are some good games that could be around 70 to 75%. One Up gave it a B-, so around that 70% or so. EGM gave it a 6.5. Right around there.
GamePro 5 out of 5.
Yes.
No, really?
No, but you stepped on my joke.
Oh,
Yeah. No, that's fine.
Sorry.
GamePro. But Game Informer gave it a 7. IGN gave it a 7.5, and GamePro gave it a 5.5. No, 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5. I was gonna see if you noticed that because this would be the third game in like 4 weeks that got 5 out of 5.
GamePro gave a perfect score too. Just going
editor, boss, you're not gonna believe this.
Holy fucking shit.
Japan's got this shit figured out. I don't know what to tell you.
I needs to run on the cover next week. It's the best game I've ever played. And then the next game, it's, oh my God.
Well, you know what actually did get my attention with this game was the fact that, and they had to have done this on purpose.
Yeah.
One of the levels, one of the females of the household is in the bath.
Oh no.
A bubble bath.
Yeah.
With bubbles covering her.
Very selective.
Very selective
bubbles.
Choice of where the bubbles are going to go.
Right.
And for young Mikey, that was all I needed. And thankfully, I think it was like the second or third level.
Oh, good.
So that's all I needed.
Kept failing it.
Oh, shit. I guess I got to do it again. They're like, there's no pressure point on her cleavage. You can't bite there. I'm like, not with that attitude.
You motorboating son of a bitch. Mister Mosquito.
This game, Games Radar put together an article that was actually kind of funny. It was the worst animals that have had games based on them.
Oh.
And Matt Cundy of Games Radar said, given that mosquitoes kill millions of people every year, we'd have thought a game that puts players in control of such a notorious serial killer would have been met with more controversy. It was tongue in cheek, and I actually found that was very funny. That was very funny.
Yeah, it's not the mosquitoes, it's the malaria.
Well, unless
they're the carriers.
Unless the mosquitoes really suck a lot of blood. They really go to town on you.
They're just an empty bag by the end.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Exactly. They're floating around there like they're a drunk walking home from the bar. Just like,
Lenny.
That was my favorite quest from Red Dead.
Still makes me laugh.
Still makes me laugh all the time.
Later in the game, I don't know, this game's 7 years old at this point? How old is Red Dead 2?
Fuck yeah, man. It's got to be 5 years at this point. Something like
we
that.
did it on the podcast, so it can't be that old.
Probably 3 years. Three?
Yeah, I'm just skip ahead if you don't want to hear the ending of Red Dead Redemption 2, which I think
I haven't even finished it and I already know what happens.
Yeah, when Lenny dies.
What the fuck, Andrew?
Pretty much your whole gang dies, except for a few select people.
That's in Saint Denis.
Yes.
Lenny specifically.
Yes, he dies in Saint Denis. I couldn't help just be like, Lenny. A very somber, like holding my dead friend, who one of the few guys in the gang I actually really liked. There was like 3 of them that
was one where I considered, I'm like, can I go back and replay this mission? Did I fuck something up? Because I really don't want him to die.
Yeah.
And it happens like you do not see it coming.
That's like one of the more cinematic elements of the game is when your gang starts dying, which is like part of like very like series of cowboy films.
Yes.
There's always the thing of like they all die eventually.
Just in the middle of a conversation, Micah's head gets blown off.
Yes.
And you're like, what the fuck? I didn't like that guy, but actually You stay down.
Actually, no, Mikey doesn't die until
really?
Until the end.
Wait,
because
what?
he's your like rival.
Oh,
so
no.
you have to battle it.
Oh,
at the end.
okay.
Yeah.
No, someone dies. You're like walking into a town and they just get their head blown off.
Yeah, I
Like,
forget who that was now. I don't know.
either way, that's
whatever.
going back.
But
a few
yeah,
years.
just very somber. Lenny.
So that's all I really have to say about the game. Obviously, you haven't played the
No.
game yet. Now, what we usually do is we give the games a rating out of 4 bits based on our memories of the game, very subjective rating on our past experiences with the game.
past experiences.
Then we play the game, and then we come back and rate the game out of 4 bits as it holds up in the modern day against the likes of modern games like Elden Ring and like MLB The Show and Tunic and Star Wars Skywalker Saga, all that stuff. But because you don't have an experience playing it in the past, we're going to actually play the game, and you're going to come back and give the game a rating based on what you think you would have thought of it had you played it as a kid. I'll be giving it my rating based on my experiences with it back in 2002, and then we'll each give it its rating out of 4 bits as it holds up in the modern day. Yeah. Are you ready to give this a shot?
I'm so excited to play this game. It's just, like there are games we play where like, I think I know what I'm going to do.
Yes.
I think I know what I'm getting into. This, I have no idea, and I'm so excited.
100%. And now we're actually going to be doing something a little bit different. Typically on the podcast, we'll play you some of the audio of us playing the game, but we found that since we added the video element, we're really limiting ourselves in terms of how we cut the gameplay.
Yeah.
So if you want to experience the gameplay portion of this in all its glory, you're going to have to go over to our patreon.com/the Retrograde Podcast. You join the Mushroom Club. We're going to be posting the full gameplay there.
Yes.
So not just cut down to 10 minutes and 15 minutes. We found that it was kind of the worst of both worlds.
Yeah.
Trying
You're not
to
really getting a
pander to
sense.
both an audio and a video medium. We're going to put it all up there on the Patreon. Every so often, we'll clip some of it for the YouTube channel so you can watch it over there, but not every week. So head over there if you want to see the gameplay. Otherwise, it's going to be a quick snap, and you're going to return right to the gameplay, and we'll see you on the other side.
Absolutely. Let's go play this game, and let's go find out if we liked it or not.
Let's go do it.
Oh no, he's back. I give in.
I'm going to bite your nipple. Just a reminder that you can now find our gameplay segments where we play through a portion of today's game and provide video commentary while doing it over on our Patreon, patreon.com/the Retrograde Podcast. Join the Mushroom Club for $5 US per month for access to all the gameplay, plus 2 to 4 bonus episodes per month where we do things like character drafts, top 10 lists, and even take some suggestions from our community. So show some support to the podcast by joining the Mushroom Club at patreon.com/the Retrograde Podcast for access to bonus content and all of our gameplay segments. We'll see you guys on the other side.
And welcome back to the Retrograde. Wow. You've been spotted.
Let's battle.
Just beating the shit out of each other.
Andrew.
Yes.
Welcome to my childhood.
Okay.
What did you think?
It's an interesting game. It's very, like, I do appreciate that it's like 2 feet in. Like this is the concept and we are doing it.
Right.
This is your childhood. I just picked up that's what you said. Okay.
Biting girls in bathtubs.
Yeah. So yes, if you went over to the Patreon and heard us talk about that, awesome. But if you didn't, we did get to the bathtub scene.
Yes.
The very famous bathtub scene.
We got to the incredibly famous bathtub scene. Formative, I think.
Yeah, formative.
For
sure.
Yeah. I was happy we got there. I didn't get much farther than that when I played the game as a kid either.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I was playing it, and I was bummed out that because here's the thing. They're setting it up the whole time that you can hit something in the environment and the person will get up to deal with it.
Yeah.
You can't do that in this one.
No.
Maybe there is. Maybe I'll take to Reddit and find out if there's any way to take that a little further.
Subreddit, 3.9 million followers, like 36,000 active right now.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
Yeah.
This game is 20 years old.
Yeah, it was 20 years I've spent thinking about something that ultimately I don't think is atrocious. I know you had some issues with the controls in the beginning. I did have some issues
with the controls.
I do think that in terms of the fun,
right,
it's aged poorly.
Yeah, which was probably in 20 years ago a very so cool that there were so many choices around the room that you could make them interact with and stuff like that. Now seems like laughably small. Like there's 2 things, there's 3 things.
I bet you even for the time it came out, that was still probably relatively limited in scope.
Oh, was it?
In terms of what you can do, 2002 for video games. We're talking about a year that saw the likes of games like Kingdom Hearts, Super Mario Sunshine, Splinter Cell. Right. So you could already shoot out light bulbs in 2002,
That's
Eternal
true.
Darkness. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4, Ratchet and Clank. There are games. This is a good year for games, actually.
This is a really good year.
Blood Rain.
Oh, okay. Hello.
Speaking of Dr. Michael Morbius. It's a fellow vampire.
Yeah, fellow. They all know each other. There's a society of them. There's
We
interviews.
know them. We're just not that close.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've heard of that guy. Yeah.
I heard a bit of an asshole, if I'm being honest. I think what was interesting, or what made this game worth talking about back in the day, wasn't the gameplay or the variety of options you had. It was simply how weird it was. That was the selling point, and kind of the only selling point.
Right.
It took a game like Katamari Damacy to really break open the realm of weird and join it with the realm of good.
Oh, good,
and
yeah.
say that you can have a weird game. Like, imagine if Mister Mosquito, if the controls were a bit tighter, if there were 3 people in the room at any given time, if there were 20 things you could do and then some hidden things.
Right. If the whole floor of the house was open instead of one room.
Like, more of an open world.
Yeah.
Exactly. Kind of risk reward. You see people in a group or someone petting a dog. Or,
Well, it's kind of like, I hate to say, I don't know why this is a comparison that went to my head, but like Pokemon Snap.
Sure.
Where you could play it many different ways, and only because of the timing and where you're looking and what you're doing, it opens up different things. Like, oh, I didn't even know the dog knocked over the garbage there.
Right.
Then I could go over there and
even that could work. That's a little on rails. I mean, that was one of the issues I had with the new Pokemon Snap, was that it was still very much on rails.
Literally.
Right? Yeah. Like, you're on rails.
Rails.
And you're in the 0-1 or whatever that machine is.
How in
that
the
you're
world
in.
could you not forget the 0-1? One of the greatest video game cards of all time.
Of all time.
Yeah.
One of. I mean, and you think about the protagonist, Todd Snap.
Well, no, not Todd Snap. Todd Snap shows up later.
In the original Pokemon
in the
Snap,
original
and then
one, yes.
Todd Snap shows up as a mentor.
As a legendary photographer.
You know what that felt like?
What's
the
that?
reveal of Todd Snap?
Yes.
Did you ever go back to your high school after graduating
Yeah.
and you realize you're not no one fucking knows or cares who you are?
No.
Yeah.
No, that's a weird one. And it's smaller than you think it is.
Yes.
You're like, oh, okay, yeah. No, it is. It's Todd Snap, though, a true legend. The game's named after him.
It is. And
It's Todd Snap's game. We're just playing it.
here's what I don't get. Is you got John Madden's football. Why isn't it Todd Snap's Pokemon Snap?
Todd Snap's Pokemon Snap.
He changed the game of photography forever.
Todd Snap's Pokemon Snap, keep snapping.
Keep snapping that colon, baby. Never stop, keep snapping.
Never stop snapping. Todd Snap. Are we having stroke?
A very, very happy predation for you. I hope she's okay.
Yeah, I hope she's okay.
So that I can continue telling that joke without feeling bad. But I didn't feel that bad about sucking the blood of the characters in this game because they were already lifeless. What more life can I steal from them?
They are lifeless. And they seemingly are the worst people in the world.
Well, I think the daughter was just kind of born into it. Maybe it's Maybelline. I think maybe the parents were... I don't know. The mom seemed all right.
I don't know.
The dad seemed like an asshole.
Dad seemed like an asshole.
Yeah.
Plucking nose hairs out.
Plucking nose
like
hairs.
A monster.
Although...
What's up?
If a mosquito were to...
Watch us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want that mosquito recording a podcast about what it saw.
I guess, yeah. And I guess we should really get into the, the idea of whether you're born into evil or you adopt it, with a daughter.
Right. John Locke
nature
had
versus
a whole
nurture
thing about the tabula rasa,
Yep.
the blank slate,
Yep.
and maybe we will pivot the podcast.
I think
at
that's
this
what it
point.
should be about.
Yeah, next week.
Okay.
Next week.
We'll see you next week when we discuss nature versus nurture.
Yeah. I think this game needed a lot more nurture in order to be something worth really spending a lot of time with. But again, I did love the proof of concept. As a 33-year-old now playing the game,
Right.
It felt very barren. Like if this game were available on the Steam store and as like an indie game or something like that, you couldn't get away with charging more than $4.
No.
Even something like Untitled Goose Game, which I think was like a $20 game, similar kind of concept. It's like you are a goose, do goose things to interact with the humans.
Do goose things.
Do goose things.
Welcome to stage 1. Objective. Do goose things.
Do goose things. And there's always question marks for some reason.
Yeah, I don't
do
know.
goose things?
Honk honk.
But even that added another element to it, like
Right.
a little weird element of physics, a vague checklist of things that you had to accomplish. This is very bare bones. And I think that definitely hurts it. I still think in the retro score for 2002, yes, you had a lot of games like that coming out, the ones that I just read. However, a lot of the games that I was talking about were pretty straightforward in terms of our expectations of video games. Hitman, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4, Eternal Darkness did some different things, some cool things. Splinter Cell, Spider-Man, Medal of Honor.
Oh, Spider-Man.
A lot of these were very expected.
Right.
And this was still a game that came out and broke those expectations.
Right.
Didn't change the way that we would play video games forever, but eventually I do think it opened the door to allow for more crazy, wacky, creative games to be accepted by our audiences in North America. But that said, Andrew, maybe it's time to get into our thoughts on the game and apply a rating to it. Unless you have any other thoughts from the outset.
No, like I guess I can get into my thoughts when we do the review of the game.
Sure.
So so Mikey, take it away. How are we reviewing this game?
So typically what we do on the podcast is take a look back at the games that we used to play when we were kids. Usually it's something we have an affinity towards one way or another. I do have an affinity towards this game.
Certain levels.
Certain levels, certain stages, yeah. We give the game a rating and review out of 4 bits based on our impression of the game back when we played it as kids, and then we give it a rating and review based on how the game holds up in the modern day against like some modern games. Andrew, because you don't have any experience having played this game 20 years ago in 2002, you're going to be giving your retro score based on what you think you would have thought of it had you played it back in the day. So take us away, Andrew.
You know what? It would have, I don't blame you for having, very clear impressions of this game. Like it is a game that you play, and you're not going to do this thing where I don't think in 2 years when we're doing this podcast, somebody's like, Mister Mosquito. I'm like, what game was that?
Yeah.
Like, no, there are certain games, by the way, we do play, and you don't remember you played them.
Right.
They're generic. This is not generic.
Right.
This is taking a swing that, I really appreciate that kind of thing. And I really do appreciate something novel in video games. The problem is when we actually break down the video game parts of it, it's not great. And I wonder, 20 years ago, what I would have thought about this game. I think I would have had a little bit more patience for it than I do in the modern day. And I think I would have, probably gone further. It's also a very achievable game. Like you could beat this game.
Yeah.
So I think I would have liked that as well, but I don't know if I would have come all the way around to it. I'm going to give it 2.5.
2.5. I think that's totally fair.
Thank you.
Which is, I think that's what I say.
You do.
After just about all of your reviews, unfortunately. I think it's an unfair rating.
I was good. I'm waiting for the one time like, no, I will not let that stand, sir.
No, you re-review it.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to hear it again. Show your work.
I think you're absolutely right.
Okay.
That this game was not about the gameplay when it came out. But when I was a kid, playing a game like this, to me, it was an excuse to like show people who didn't know video games something that might get them intrigued in the industry and the medium. The concept is really good.
Yeah.
It's a really cool concept for a game. I mentioned Shadow of the Colossus before. That's a game that you really have to imagine that you're small in scale against something very large. This kind of did that. It had that element. Even when like an NPC is walking past you, the ground kind of like shakes. Like there's a gravitas to them getting up and moving around. However, it wasn't that fun, and I knew that while I was playing it. I was playing it for the experience of playing something different as opposed to playing something that I actually enjoy. Ratchet and Clank out at the same time is something that I enjoyed the second-to-second gameplay of, but this is a proof of concept as an open door to seeing what could also come of video games potentially down the line or even right now. I was a fan of the games like Pepsi Man that my buddy Leo Lee would put me on. These games that I'd never played before. Really? And this was one of the first times where I was like, all these games, I don't need a modded PlayStation for this.
Right.
I don't need to have a friend who's like in tune with the culture and the releases, the minor releases of the era to show me what they are. I'm just kind of getting it. I kind of wanted to give it a 2.5. But I'm because of the impression that it left on me.
Yeah.
I can't stress enough how interesting this was to me.
Yes.
And kind of like watching a movie like Uncut Gems. Did I enjoy watching it? Not really.
No.
It was kind of miserable. Uncut Gems was.
Uncut Gems
was miserable. This wasn't fun, but it was intriguing, and I've thought about it a ton since. So based almost on the impression that it left me and the amount I wanted to talk about it as a kid, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 4.
I was going to say, you are the person that brought this to my attention. So I'd be shocked if you're like, hey, we should go back and play this game. 2.5. I'd be like, whoa. What?
Yeah.
You didn't like it either?
Yeah.
So at 3 and a 2.5, that's 5.5 out of 8. Let's get to our current scores. Okay, so the thing I kind of wanted to talk about was that this game plays victim to a little bit of the time. The player is living in one world, and the environment is living in another.
Yep.
It's like a snow globe type thing, where they're not really interacting with each other. And that's why that B speed button going into
That kind of lock in. Once you've seen something that you can zoom into, you press B and it kind of just...
And there's like a blink before you land that is like creating of like, now you're touching it.
Yes.
Because before, there's no way you'd be touching things, you know? And so I think that's a little rough. The controls are pretty, for me, they were a little rough. And the graphics have not held up. And we just described all those games. The graphics are actually not bad and still look pretty good. The graphics are not great. The thing that saves this from being like, not for me, I didn't like this, you know, kind of game, is that it's just such a weird idea for a game. And as much as I made fun of during the gameplay portion of this weird narrative overspeak thing that they do, it's super memorable.
Yes.
And I love the weirdness of it.
Yes.
Like the Yamadas are vacationing in their house. It's like it's like a speak and spell tape that you learn English with. Like they speak at such a pace that you wouldn't be like, she is tired and is going to bed.
Yeah.
Like I actually think that's a really interesting way of doing it. So as much as like some of the creative decisions that have not aged well, some of them are such an angle that they'll be always memorable.
Sure.
So I'm going to give this a 1.5.
1.5. I didn't have as much of an issue. That's an unfair rating.
Okay,
I just want to
there
say
we go.
That right
it's
off
an
the
unfair
bat.
rating.
I didn't have as much issues with the controls. I can see how someone would because they're weird.
They're weird.
It's not like you would think to move, you move the left thumbstick, and that's going to kind of. But so instead of doing that, you hold you tap the right bumper or the left bumper, and that makes you go faster or slower. Or the right trigger turns you around.
Yeah.
I think that if they had gone for what we now consider to be more traditional controls, using that left joystick to kind of zoom you around and this and that, I think that if they did that, it would have aged more poorly.
Okay.
They really mechanized the controls to make them somewhat stiff but predictable and understandable. They're slower, but they get the job done. It just feels a little bit obtuse. Kind of like in a similar way like Kojima games. Their controls don't really age poorly because they're just so unique. They're in an ecosystem of their own.
Yeah.
That they're not, I'm not like, oh, I've played a game that controls the camera way better than this. It's like the camera doesn't control the way in a Kojima game, the way it controls in other games.
Sure.
Therefore, you're never feeling like it's aged out of it. I think that's actually made it land pretty well. I think the only detriment is the fact that it is a very slow game and not a very fun game. However, it is a very unique game.
Yes.
And I always consider in the context of these ratings, where else can I get an experience like this? I think because it's so easy, I could see myself for an afternoon playing through it just to see the different set pieces and the different levels and get some of the narration. I don't love it.
Okay.
But I think because of the swing it takes, I'm going to give it a 2.5.
Wow.
Because I don't feel like giving a game that so conscientiously takes a big swing and goes weird and goes balls to the wall weird and is self-aware of its weirdness. Like it's like you realize that you're a mosquito, right? Like putting in, you're like, what the fuck?
It's
I
like
feel
an
seen
accusation.
right now. Yeah. I just don't think that you can get something tonally like this very often anymore. And I worry that maybe we're not making games as weird as this for some reason.
I totally respect that. Like, I completely agree with you. I wish we could make more weird things. My issue is not with the weirdness. My issue is the gameplay.
Yes.
And I just want to make that clear because I'm with you on that. So that together, all scores is a 9 out of 16. You know what?
9.5 out of 16.
9.5 out of 16. Oh, wait. How really? Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Good for us.
Now I'm thinking maybe I should have checked your math a little bit more often.
9.5 out of 16.
Because you said that so confidently.
1.5 and a 2.5. Wow. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, 9.5 out of 16. That's pretty good. Like that is in line with the scores of when it came out.
Siphon Filter 9.5.
Wow.
9.25 because Jeremy fucked us over with his score.
9.25.
Batman Returns 8.5. Wario's Woods 9.5. All these games like Joe and Mac 9.5.
Wow.
Games that had a little bit of a generic exit from their retro selves into their more modern selves. I still think that it's hard to. Like you look a retro score and a current score 5.5 versus a 4. I think that's also, it's just in line with what this game deserves. I'm okay with where we're at here.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I really do. I think we got there really honestly, and the results are kind of in line with everything else.
Yes.
So it does make sense. 9.5 out of 16. Mr. Mosquito, a really interesting nostalgia trip for Mikey, and a very interesting eye-opening experience for me. So if you want one of those two things, go out and play Mr. Mosquito.
Hell yeah. I like that a lot.
Jeez.
But before we go, before we let this go, before we smack this game down.
Yeah.
We got to go see what awards this game won. So I hear the band warming up.
Absolutely.
I hear the cameras chomping at the bit.
Yeah, chomping at the bit.
As cameras do.
Cameras are autonomous in this situation,
Yes, they are.
and are like chain chomps.
Chain chomps indeed.
Yes.
Snap,
Todd. I want your blood. Todd, snap.
Oh, yeah, we didn't mention this. Todd is one of the photographers.
Yes, he is. Todd,
In fact, he is
we've
the
never
only
mentioned
photographer.
that. He is. It's always walk down the red carpet, say hi to Todd Snap during
Yes.
the was step and repeat. So Todd Snap's going to take some photos. We're going to hear the band. Let's hear what awards this game has won.
Not yet. We got to make our way down the red carpet first.
Eventually, we're chronologically, we are walking down the carpet,
Yes.
and then we are hearing awards.
Okay, let's do it. Let's
Carpet-
walk down the carpet
carpet first.
Carpet before the
Carpet
drink.
first.
You've been waiting for it all year. The most glamorous award ceremony of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, the Grady's.
Oh, delightful.
Wow.
Did something a little different
What a
today.
surprise.
Yeah.
What a surprise.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Todd. And here comes, oh, wow, he's got little wings on.
Yeah, he does.
Elliot flying his way to the
Elliot.
stage. He's got an envelope, kind of like a restaurant chit.
Oh, yeah,
It's
right,
like snapped
right on his
into the needle.
nose.
That's where the envelope is. And we're going to find out what awards this game won. Elliot, you want to take that envelope off and,
Yeah.
and read us the awards? Well fitting. It's another insect.
Yes.
The crickets.
The crickets.
Meaning this game doesn't win any formal awards.
Natural enemies.
Crickets and
Crickets and
mosquitoes.
mosquitoes.
Who do you
Everyone
think
knows.
would win in a battle to the death?
Mosquitos.
I think mosquitoes for sure.
Mosquitos could take a bunch of us down. So I think, unless we're talking like Jiminy Cricket and they can talk and walk and do things like that.
That is who I was
Oh,
talking
like an
about.
army of Jiminy Crickets versus mosquitoes?
1,000 Jiminy Crickets versus
Jiminy
one Mr.
McCrickets.
Mosquito.
It's a McDonald's item.
Jiminy McCricket.
Jiminy McCricket.
Jiminy McCricket.
So nothing for Mr. Mosquito, which is too bad because for such a memorable, unique take on a game, it should.
You want it
Yeah.
to win something, but I do see there's a bunch of mosquitoes floating around with some ancillary envelopes. They're going to drop one in your lap.
Yeah.
And they're going to drop one in my lap.
Okay.
We're going to give the it's an award for this, kind of a participation award. But I got mine. You
got
ready?
yours?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to start?
Going to open this up.
Yeah. Wow, it's long. So it's
Very long.
long. Yeah. Yeah. He's unfolding it more even. Now he's going. It's like a file folder. He's got a lot of files.
Oh, there it is. I got
It's like
it.
a dossier.
It's a dossier. It's a dossier. Okay, so this wins the Burst Bubble Bath Award.
Oh,
because
yeah?
I expected so much more from that bubble bath scene.
Oh, wow. So mine is, he threw it away. Classic Letterman. It's coming back. It's a boomerang. My award is going to be the Never Satisfied Award. Oh, it's kind of like scratching a mosquito bite.
Oh.
It's fun, but it's never satisfying.
I thought it was like a Skylar sister.
That's a great Hamilton reference on our video game podcast. Everyone loves Hamilton, right? Go and watch Hamilton.
Yeah.
So there you go. Those are our two awards for Mr. Mosquito. And you know what? Like I said, I would go back and play this game.
Yeah.
I would try and find it. It's
weird
very
as hell.
interesting. It's weird as hell.
It's weird as hell, and I'm not going to take it.
Okay.
I'm mad as hell.
Yeah.
I fucking want to play more of this fucking game.
Well, there you go. And you know what? We can do that right after this.
Ooh.
Thank you so much for listening. We love every single one of you, and we can't wait to talk to you soon. My name is Andrew Bascom, and with me, as always, is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself.
Mikey Aaronworth.
This is the Retrograde Podcast.
Game over.
That's how it's going to end. Clap. Want more Retrograde in your life?
You can visit our website for show notes at theretrogradepod.com. Follow us on Twitter at Retrograde Mikey, at Retrograde Andy, and the podcast at Retrograde Pod.
Or Instagram at the Retrograde Podcast.
For bonus episodes, check us out at patreon.com/theretrograde podcast.
Send your questions and business inquiries to the Retrograde Podcast at gmail.com.
See you next week, D-pads.
Furnished by Sad Styles Productions.
You motorboating son of a bitch.